Thank you. Welcome also to those of you who will be watching the recording. I imagine that the most important part of this call may be your questions. So I'll just say a few words about this training. So I was running transformational coaching training for probably 4 or 5 years. And then I decided to offer a much more intensive version of that. And we had the first cohort this time, started in last year and finished in May. And it was full. We had 30 people, mostly very experienced coaches. And it was a very intensive program like the one you see online. And it was really quite an incredible journey. And even the very experienced coaches found they were working in a way that was completely new for them. So there are certain kind of fundamentals about why this is such a strong program. And the first one of which is that whether you're a coach or like George, who's more in a leadership position, this is about radically opening our perceptual field. So whether you look at mystical teachers or you look at the new science, there's a common message, which is that we are living in a complete information field. It's just that we're normally in such a limited bandwidth of perception, driven so much by our thinking, that that information field is not really available to us. And I remember when, in the time when I was very close to Thomas Hubel, and he said that first of all, because I could see when I watched him working with people, I was like, how on earth are you seeing so deeply into people? And he said, because all the information is there. And I was like, well, I hear you, but it's not really available to me. However, through more and more work, which is continual, and that's one of the beauties of this work, all the information is more and more available, and it's extraordinary. It's extraordinary when you work with someone that you just see their whole inner structure, every level of it. And you're not seeing through a cognitive process, you're seeing through a much deeper perceptual, direct, whole body, whole self, whole heart knowing. So that's one of the pillars of the developmental process of participating in this program, that your perceptual field will get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's a remarkable process. And it's far outside what normal coaching is bringing. I genuinely, well, I'm told that there are very few trainings that are training coaches to develop in this way. Experienced coaches are telling me that. So the opening of our perceptual field is right at the core of this. And that occurs, as it says in the program description, through your own developmental journey, which is the kind of journey you hold for clients. And the two pillars of that are awakening and healing. And they go hand in hand. And that's a lifelong commitment to our development. So the awakening is the awakening to a more and more expanded perceptual field. It's an awakening to a more and more unitive consciousness. It's an awakening to deeper and deeper sense of connection to higher sources of intelligence, and indeed to the ultimate creative intelligence. That's what I would call the awakening pillar. And that happens to a large extent to the degree that we engage the healing pillar. because that's the part that is, until recently anyway, much less um, much less engaged, because the healing pillar is where you, and what we help our clients to do, is to turn towards all the parts of us that have been put into exile from a very young age. And of course, a large part of that is our emotional body, all the emotions that were not possible for us to hold and contain when we were growing up. So we had to exile them, and they went effectively offline. And one of the ways we did that was to tighten our body more and more and more and more, which is why such an important part of the work is becoming more and more deeply embodied in the truest sense of the word. And that means coming right down more and more to the pelvis as your foundation and learning to sit with your clients from a deeply embodied, open-hearted space of greater and greater precision of perception. I mean, real precision of perception. And within that, using language like an acupuncture needle, because part of the training is, and part of what you bring to clients is to point out how so much of the time we've got used to using language in a disconnected, abstract, conceptual way, rather than completely aligned with our full experience. I mean, I've sat in so many corporate meetings where there's a lot of talking, but very little of it is really coming from experience. And most clients you work with are in that habit because that's the habit of our culture, what I call the culture of absence, that we talk and talk and talk, but it's disconnected. So, which brings me to the point that in this training, I'm also training people to become agents of transformation. And that means engaging with your clients absolutely explicitly a process of awakening and healing. You make that contract from the beginning. And the extent of the depth of your work, or of all of our work, is entirely dependent on the depth of our own process. And in particular, when we start to work with one of the core principles of the work, which is radical inclusion. Radical inclusion, which means that there is no part of what is happening in a person that is in any way better or worse than any other part. So there is never, ever, ever any kind of fixing or making wrong or trying to make something better. For instance, let's say you're holding a safe enough space and the person, I mean, let's start with simple emotions like anxiety. Everyone is carrying anxiety now, but most of the time we're trying not to feel it. So you make a safe space and you're clear because you can feel. And a lot of the time we are feeling, we're already where the client is not, meaning we're feeling what's going on in their interior often before they do. But you gently open the possibility that the client is feeling anxiety and you stop them explaining it. Because what happens is someone will want to go into narrative about why they're feeling anxious. No, 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 no. We hold a space just to feel, without condition. And that's how a deep movement occurs. That's how the beginning of a transformational movement occurs, the beginning of one. But then we get into what we might think of darker emotions, like someone feels despair. Someone feels hopeless. A lot of people now are feeling powerless. So we do not get hooked into, oh, I want to help you not feel powerless. No, we do the exact opposite. We say, let's see what happens if we can fully embrace that. Really allow it, really stop saying no. Stop having any opposition to that, because remarkable things happen when there is truly an unconditional space. So this is all dependent on you being able to hold that space. Because if you get frightened by someone saying, I feel hopeless, you're going to try and fix it, which never works, by the way. It never, ever works. So that's why at the core of the program, your journey becomes of primary importance. And I know for sure that many people doing this program go through a profound personal journey as part of it, because that's the only way you can hold other people. So, this also takes place, of course, in the bigger context of what's happening in the world and the kind of crises we're in. Crises that are arising from such fragmentation, such polarization. And when I wrote my book 3 years ago, LeaderAsHealer, that was all about what it means to become a leader who holds a space where that kind of fragmentation can start to dissolve, which depends on your inner process. And actually, next Tuesday, I'll be delivering a new book to the publisher, which is an amazing collaboration with a woman called Amy Fox. And it's a collection of our writings, and it's just taking everything to another level. We're really excited about it. So those are really the key points that I can say right now. The program is set up in such a way that you receive huge support during it, because you will go through a big journey yourself. So we have 12 meetings with me. Each one is 4 hours. There are smaller groups that meet with one of my top coaches for 90 minutes. We call them small mentoring groups. You have 4 or 5 of those. You will have 5 one-to-one, what we call matrix sessions, which are these laser-like 30-minute sessions with one of my amazing team. We have an online site where there's a lot of writing and sharing and Q&A if you have questions. So we are very intent to create a big holding space, and we take that very seriously indeed. Yeah, I think I'll pause for a moment and see. Please, any and every kind of question is welcome. So please, if you'd like to speak, just unmute yourself and speak. Ask me anything or comment in any way at all.
Can you hear me okay? Because I've got
Chris. Yeah, I hear you very well. Thank you.
a gardener. Yeah, thank you, Nicholas. I feel very resonant with what you're describing. I feel very much where my most impactful work, this is where it happens, and it comes from my loving presence more than what I'm doing.
Right.
I work a lot in the corporate world with senior leaders, kind
Yeah.
of this field, but over in Europe and Middle East, and I never contract, or I rarely contract explicitly around this being around awakening and healing and
Right.
transformation. I'm more like the client brings something that's a doorway to that, and my intention is always to bring the deepest leverage point of unlock and evolution as I'm able and the client's ready for. And my question is, and I would love to work more explicitly with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to only be doing this work really, right? Where this is coming to me for, and be less Trojan horsey with it.
Right. I get that. I understand. Yeah.
I'm wondering what you find in those spaces of kind of senior leadership, big corporates, whether that is a fertile ground for this kind of work and explicitly contracting that, or would I need to be thinking about shifting my client work to other fields in order to do more of this?
Beautiful question, Chris. So here's my answer. And part of it, you see, because already there's some kind of teaching in this. Because what's behind your, I will answer the question as you put it, but there is also behind the question some of your process. And that's actually the really interesting part. Because if we really dived into the process in you from which that question arises, as logical and reasonable as the question is, the question might not sit in the same way with you. Right?
Feel that already, yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, so you're getting the transmission here. Yeah. So then that's beautiful that we understand that. And that's why with leaders, because leaders always come with some issue out there. And I'm from the beginning saying, no, 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 no. Because how you see out there is 100% dependent on your inner vibration and your inner integration. So if we work on that, even the question you have will change, or it won't sit with the same kind of weight it sits in you now. So I just thank you for receiving this. I appreciate this. I don't hear you now. What?
I'll just briefly respond to that.
Okay.
Comes up is two things. One is the fear of rejection from systems that have become my home of where I get to do the work, but also what brings vulnerability.
Of course.
And then the second is the fear of what would I, if the answer is not the one I want to hear, what would I sacrifice?
Yeah. Thank you. And that first one, which obviously is not the place to look at now, but that first one sits on a very deep topic for all of us, which is the way all of us sacrifice some part of our essence to fit in with our family ecosystem, whatever that was. So that kind of issue you bring with such clarity and self-awareness is a very deep one. It's more than what it just seems there. So thank you. That said, if I take your question at the level of the question, I don't do Trojan horse anymore, but it's taken me quite a long time to have the kind of confidence there. I do find more and more and more, and it's also, of course, it's how I speak, how any of us speak, and the transmission with which we speak, that people are more and more open now, because systems are in such crisis, and senior leaders are working in so much growing instability and chaos, that they're naturally hitting the fact that a lot of their old structures of thinking are just creating more and more stress. So if I or you find the right way of presenting this work, which I believe I do, it really makes sense. And it has to be very simple and very coherent. I wouldn't say the kind of things I've been saying here, but I would present awakening and healing in a way that just makes so much sense. It would be hard to say what you're talking about. And of course, part of that is arriving at the point where I don't care what response comes back. And I teach at the IMD Business School, which is kind of right at the heart of normal business world. And that's a great testing ground, because I typically start with 40 leaders from all around the world who are very numb and very averse to the idea of being vulnerable. And by day 2, typically tears are flowing. So it's a whole journey. But I have to meet a wall at the beginning because they haven't contracted actually in the way I would contract with an individual leader. They don't really, they're told this is an amazing 3 days they're going to have and the highlight of a whole month-long program, but they have no idea what they're really coming into. So I have to be not careful, but I have to know that they haven't contracted for this. So I have to shepherd them in fiercely and lovingly. Fiercely and lovingly. And with huge respect. So I hope I'm giving you some answer at different levels to your question. But is the ground getting more fertile? Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt. And if we become the kind of vessels that can more and more openly and directly speak to these themes, I believe that's what we're here for. And that's about each of us stepping into our full wingspan, let's say, our full capacity without any shrinking or hiding, which is not to say that we include the kind of fears you're talking about. We don't say, oh, they're wrong. No. Everything is included. So if I was to work with you now, and by the way, during the training, I do a lot of one-to-one work in front of the group with people. We would start by feeling your fears, probably. Really feeling them. Really feeling them. And then we don't know where that's going. So part of this modality of coaching as well is that I'm not working from a script of where this is going. I'm working from let's become more and more one with what's really happening in you. All the levels of that, which will appear as we work. Because I totally trust that process. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Ari, just unmute yourself.
Hi. So, as you know, I don't come from the corporate world.
Yeah.
I'm a spiritual director, and I have two questions. So I've, as you know, I'm just telling the group, I've already done probably a couple of those transformational training with you. So it's just a practical question. I begin with what a new course will give more. I want to tell everyone that my work with you has changed completely the way I do spiritual direction. And it was profound learning and profound results personally for me and for the work with my clientele. We don't call it clientele, but in this context, it works. So it's almost like I am more interested in the more healing part for myself. And those two pillars, because I know that what affects the work. It's really
yes.
And in this context, the next question is: so I've achieved or I've arrived to with staying modest, to become a very good spiritual director, so to speak. But it's always one-on-one. And I think that the fear is how to expand that work to kind of what you're doing, to be a leader that works with groups, and there is always something that stops me. I do sometimes, and then I regress because the fear just takes over. Say lack of confidence, or I don't know, whatever it is that shows up. So kind of a complex question. So
not so complex. Because during the training would be without a doubt, a very, very good way for you to meet what you call your fear that's holding you back, as you say it. That would be just revealed more and more and more, and most likely transformed. That's, you can be sure of. In terms of, I think it must be at least 3 or 4 years since you did some training with me.
Maybe, I don't count.
Well,
Things happened.
at least 3 years, I would say. So all I can say is that I've experienced a very fast track of development in this work. I'm even not where I was 6 months ago, let alone 3 years ago. The work just seems to get deeper and deeper and teaches me more and more and more as I'm teaching, interestingly, or as I'm working with people. I've also had a core training group for 3 years. So that's, we go very deep in that training process. And I've run this program and I'm working with leaders as well. So the answer to your first question is the work sits at a quite different level to how you experienced it when you were last in the training with me.
And would I feel, I mean, it's all inclusive, I understand, but all of the people will be more in the corporate world.
Yeah, most probably, but I don't think that really matters, actually. I genuinely don't think that matters. You work with people.
Yeah.
A lot. So I don't think that's so important. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And thank you for coming back. It's lovely.
Of course. By the way, I'm currently in Boulder, but most of the year I'm your neighbor. I live now in Portugal.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Good.
So,
nice to hear.
so we can connect on that
Yeah,
later.
absolutely. Okay. Thank you, Ari.
Thank you.
Tivo.
Hi,
Good to
Nicholas.
see you, Tivo.
Good to see you. So excited that you had said before you weren't going to do a second book, and now I heard you're going to do a book with Amy. So I'm so happy. So one of your podcasts really struck me with your collaborator and friend around the pelvic work, and you had a beautiful video of just how deeply pelvically and wildly you were trained and sort of did that work. And I'm curious in this training, like how deep do you go into the body, into movement and opening the pelvis? Because, and the reason I'm asking that is I'm trained in somatics and a number of other embodied pieces of work. And yet I'm still like, there's still something about Nicholas that is different and attractive and calling me. So I just want to hear a little bit of beyond sort of number of sessions and sort of the sequencing. How do you, a little bit of a taste of how you work with the body? I know that just in your transmission and how you feel and sense other bodies, you're doing the work all the time. But I'm curious somatically what happens in the program.
Thank you, Tivo. Thank you so much. So first of all, you're right that it's actually a continuous work with the body, sometimes more explicitly, but always implicitly. So you may remember in that marvelous dialogue with Orly.
I loved it. Yes.
We were both like, we keep leaving messages saying thank you for that dialogue. Yeah. I was beautiful. She used an amazing term, downing. You remember she kept talking about downing. So this, like everything in my experience, is truly an ongoing opening. It's really an ongoing opening. Some of it happens through pure somatic work. And just by being in a field of, because what happens in this training as well is that the field of the group gets more and more open in a very beautiful way. And as that happens naturally, our whole physical body opens more. You can't really separate the two. And then because I'm constantly putting an emphasis on downing and feeling more and more down, and then if we would do a deeper emotional process, either I would do it with you during a group or in a mentoring group, or you would experience that because we have practice triads as well. You've been a triad throughout the training, self-organized. There's going to be a natural opening occurring in that way. And it is, for me, who've done this for like 45 years, an ongoing opening. I mean, I'm in awe of that. Like one day I can suddenly notice, wow, I'm walking differently. Wow, my relationship to my lower body and the ground is different from a week ago. Wow. Something, so it's literally, in my experience, an ongoing opening, which is a combination of the awakening and the healing. And what's super important, and I know you know this, but you, in a way, it gives me a moment to say this, is that this whole path, there's a lot of spiritual work now and in the traditions that is about transcending this world. It's like an ascent.
Yeah.
My work or Amy's work, there is a whole parallel tradition which is quite the opposite, which says that actually our work as human beings is to bring all that light up there, right down, right down. And that means right down into the cells of our body, which is why we have to meet all the places that are contracted inside, so that we become an embodied heart, a fully embodied presence, not someone who is trying to get out of this world. So that's a very, very core inherent part of the program. So I'm not giving you maybe a particularly precise answer.
You're giving me the experience right now.
Yeah. And a lot of it, Tivo, if I can say one thing that seems so simple, a lot of it is about the out-breath and the very, very subtle layers of how we hold the out-breath. Without knowing, of course, the deeply unconscious.
Yeah.
And then, another part of the training, I'm talking about, if I say more about how we see clients, is that also, and this has only revealed itself to me in the last 6 months of working. And, with my core training team, who also coaches on the website, they kind of laugh because every so often I say, no, there's something very new coming in now. And they're like, okay, we're still digesting the pasta. But what's come in really strongly in the last 6 months or so is really seeing core programming in people, like core levels of programming that are far beyond the mental. They're like inscribed in our whole psychophysical system. Even one, and then there are some that are common, but it's like one of the beauties of this work is this process whereby the deep unconscious reveals itself, not in a cognitive way, but suddenly it happened this morning. I was supervising 2 people and one was coaching the other, and he was doing an amazing job. And suddenly this whole layer could become revealed to the client. And this is a common program, for instance, which is how all of us, I think without exception, learned to not feel totally held by life. And therefore, at a very core level, are holding ourselves. It can be obvious, like bracing, but it can also be very, very subtle. And sometimes this work allows that suddenly to be felt. Wow, I can locate that part in me, that I can feel that part of me that is holding. Wow. Because the moment we meet that part and we fully embrace it, we don't try in any way to make it go away. We say, let's really embrace that. Let's breathe right into that. It's very beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for what you bring, Tiva.
Thank you for opening me like a can opener.
Well, it's your availability. Hi, Ross. Ross is a graduate of, amazing graduate of the first program. And if I may say, Ross, you went from a certain, you're a super experienced coach at very senior levels. And I think it would be true to say you discovered something very, very different. Do you want to just say something about some essence of the journey?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And I'm sorry, I actually, I wanted to be here for the beginning of this program, but I had a rocky night and I ended up sleeping through the first half of this, so I'm sorry I'm late.
No worries.
Okay. Oh gosh, I have to manage myself because what I really want to say is this was the most powerful learning experience of my life, without question. It has changed me. It has changed the way I coach, even though, and becoming a better coach is an awesome part of this, but really what I've learned about myself, what I understand about myself, has just been extraordinary. It's like I discovered a world that I didn't really know existed. Okay, that may be way too far out for you folks. What do you think?
No, that's great, Ross. I mean, it's also been very amazing when you've shared the effect this is having on your clients, because that's obviously a primary reason for everyone being here. And that's been, that's been very powerful when you've shared how it's transformed the impact that you're having with some of your clients.
So yesterday morning, I had a conversation with a client of mine that I've done some pretty traditional coaching work with, and that I'd introduced this work of Nicholas's, this transformational coaching work. And I just did a few very short pieces with her, maybe 15 or 20 minutes. This was a few weeks ago, we did the second one. And yesterday, she came to, I was inspired for the entire day. This executive came to the conversation talking about the impact on her of this work. And she talked for about 15 minutes of all of these things that she was now seeing and understanding about herself and her leadership that she was never aware of before.
Mm.
I was just sitting there listening to this. I'm honestly, I left that call, I felt inspired for the whole rest of the day. This work is that impactful, and it is not like any other coaching work I'd ever done. And I've been coaching for 27 years.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, thank you, Ross. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, sorry, it's all online. It's all online. And although of course I love working in presence, with a group, it's very powerful online, especially as the group field gets more and more open, palpably open. And there's an amazing, I have always 1 or 2 people from Australia who are coming on at 1 a.m. for 4 hours. And not a complaint heard. So, yeah. Good. Is there anyone else? Please bring any questions or doubts or anything.
I just want to add one thing.
Yeah.
Some of you did ask if the classes are recorded, if you can't attend the class. So on the circle community that we have put in place for this dedicated program, all classes and small mentoring groups are posted for all of you to go and watch after if you are unable to attend a live session.
Thank you, Monica. And indeed, are there for a long time afterwards. So if you want to review, it's unusual that someone doesn't miss one class at least and then catches up online. And there's a very active dialogue in the circle community online. There's a space just to dialogue, there's a space to share inspirations, and so on. Good. Anything else?
And when does it start and how much it costs?
That's all online, Ori. All the information.
It is? Okay.
All the information is online.
I don't think I saw it. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. It starts in October. I don't remember exactly which date.
Correct. The first class starts on the 11th of October.
And it's always Friday and Saturday, 4 hours each day at this time.
Correct. I'm just posting in the chat section just the link to our website with all the details.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
If you go onto the website, Ori, and then the Wisdom Academy, you'll see the whole program there.
And I haven't had a chance to look at that yet. Is there a way to contact you with questions after looking?
Yeah, of course. If you there's an email address.
Okay.
If you write, that will come to me.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. There it is. Yeah, Monica's just writing the email address. Thank you. And George, just to speak to you, there are always 1 or 2 leaders on the program who are not necessarily, full-time coaches, but who are there to also enhance the whole way they lead people.
I don't want to miss to work with you again. I'm looking forward. I will need to make some. I will find a way to do this. I don't know if it is going to be this time or next time, but I will do this for sure. It's high on my to-do list.
Fantastic. Good.
It's good to see you. I have to leave. Thank you so much for today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nicholas, I have a practical question and another question. The practical question: how many of us would be in the circle?
Maximum of 30. Yeah, I found that's the good limit. It stays intimate, it stays open. Above that, it starts to become too big a group. So we turned people away last time when we got to 30, actually.
And the other question is, I very much resonate with their radical inclusion, and I work a little bit with IFS, so I like arts. I love that. Look in that approach, and my question would be, what's the how would you describe then the purpose and intention of this work with your clients?
With my clients or with you?
Well, of your work, of the work you do with your clients, how would you describe the intention, your intentionality towards that, your purpose?
My purpose is to engage, for them to engage a process of awakening and healing in order to become agents of change in the world and to break out of the current paradigm and to operate from a quite new level of presence. That's why my book was called A New Paradigm for 21st Century Leadership. So there is a process of awakening in clients. You know, I remember very well a CEO client coming to me after, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 sessions, an African-American woman, and it was beautiful because the first thing she said was, Nicholas, I'm beginning to notice that no one is really listening to anyone. She said, I'm noticing, I see people speak and I see it's not landing in people. That was an awakening because she didn't see that before. She was in the culture. And I think there's so much we've normalized in the culture that needs to be awoken to. We've normalized absence. We've normalized a small bandwidth of perception. We've normalized operating with the mind as the dominant faculty. That's why one of my first questions to leaders I work with is to consider Einstein's question, is your mind your master or your servant? Because the answer to that changes everything. And in 95+% of the leaders I work with, the mind has become the master, and not just leaders, because that's what we're taught at school. Are we taught at school, do you know you can feel another human being? You know that? Do you know you can really feel someone? Do you know how important it is to be really embodied? It said, imagine if that was at the core of our school curriculum. So from an early age, the whole process of escaping into our mind is forefront of our education. So part of, we had a beautiful exchange earlier, Chris, and one of the skills that develops is when we hear someone asking a question, we feel the process underneath the question. One of my teachers used to say, clients will keep throwing you bones, and your job is not to follow the bone. But for that, we have to be very clear inside. We have to feel immediately what's underneath the question. And then we engage immediately a deeper process. Thank you. Laszlo, do you have anything to say? If I say your name correct, I'm not sure. Laszlo.
Laszlo, yes. Yeah, I think we haven't met yet, Nicholas, but I read your book. It was recommended by one of my previous coaches. I'm a coactive coach, and her name was Victoria, who recommended your book. I think she did one of your trainings, and I've been following your work, and I'm relatively new to coaching. I'm very much into also the spirituality combining with coaching and embodiment and somatic work. So I was just very curious, basically, about how could that add to my practice. And I think Chris's very first question was basically the question that I came with also. So as a new coach, how do I? How do you sell this? What's the what's the catch? But I mean, you answered this pretty clear.
Right.
Spoke to me very well as well.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. And actually, that enables me also to say, and it comes back to your question, Chris, I never use the word spirituality. because I think it's a misleading word. And there are hooks as well, like, what does it mean to be in the zone? What does it mean to really be in flow? And imagine how it would be to live more of your life really in flow. That's not some simple, quick technique. That's a whole self-commitment if you really want to live in flow, because everyone knows what that feels like. Even one of the first questions I ask a group of leaders is, you remember, right, how it feels when your body is open and alive and you feel really present in your body? And everyone says, yeah. And then I say, so what percentage of each day do you live in that experience? 5%? 10%? Wow. So let's understand what we've normalized. That's what we've normalized. Imagine how it would be to live 90% of the day with that. You know, these are things that are hard to argue with, basically. Good. Thank you very much, and also to everyone who's watching the recording. So I look forward to seeing some of you in October. Thank you for your time.